Do we start, Ujjwala, now?
Yes, please, KTG. Let's give it just about 30 seconds and then we can begin.
I'll come in. Yeah.
Right, KTG, please start.
Thank you, Ujjwala. Thank you, Hari. Thank you, Srikanth. Thank you, everyone. Friends and colleagues, welcome to the 86th webinar of the series Rethinking City that INHAF is running for the last over 2 years almost now. I must tell you very briefly that INHAF is a non-profit civil society organization and working largely on issues of human settlements, concerned with policy advocacy, concerned with change, concerned with improving delivery system. And it's been doing this now for the last 2 years. Today's topic is quite interesting. Is on municipal governance. And there's a big questions on that issue. Can it really transform our cities and the municipal governance, the kind of municipal governments that we have, can it transform our cities? And our format today is different than what we have been doing for a long time. We had something like an anchor of 4 or 5, I think, panelists, a theme, discussing various aspects of the theme, and probably spending something like 120 minutes, 150 minutes doing it. Today is different. Today we have just one speaker, that is Srikanth Narasimhan, who is the secretary of the Bangalore Narasimhan Party. And he's telling the story of an institutional innovation in urban governance. How did this political party came about? What were the thought processes? What were the circumstances? What led to its happening? And we think this is very important. Am I correct, Srikanth is saying that this is the only political outfit in the country which is confined to municipal governance? Is that correct?
I would probably go to the extent of saying probably the only party in the world which is confined to.
Okay, that's even better. It's not only the political party unique in the context, and that is why it's this very important innovation, and we are very interested in this innovation, and therefore we requested Narasimhan Sahab not only to kind of come and tell the story of how this party came about, but we requested him and he agreed to organize 6 such webinars so that we could go into details of various aspects. This will be known over a period of time, but the fact remains, and I thank him very much that that he's agreed to do this 6 very interesting webinars. What I wanted, because we're talking about an innovation, because I talked about a slight departure in the way we manage webinars, and we are almost the midway course. We are on the 86th. We have committed ourselves to doing 150. I thought I'll take this webinars. What is it that we're trying to achieve? What is the consideration and thought process behind this whole initiative, which now is going on for almost 2.5 years? When we started this Rethinking City, and Hariharanji was part of that early thought process when we started thinking about this. We essentially had 6 assumptions or 6 postulates in mind in terms of what was the conditionality that needed, that called for this initiative. The first one was that urban challenge in India is very complex and very difficult. And I don't think we need to kind of, give example of why and how. Just look around anywhere, look at numbers. We're talking about 870 million people in Indian cities by 2050, 30 more years. We're talking about investment of $640 billion in terms of urban infrastructure in order to kind of, bring them at even level. And this figure of $640 billion must be seen in the context of $14 billion we were able to spend over a period of 10 years under JNNURM. You just imagine, JNNURM was one of the better organized, one of the better managed projects. And so these figures tell you, I think, that the challenge is enormous. And why these numbers, they look at environment, look at rivers, pollution, governance, housing, slums, look at anything in our cities, and we know that India's urban challenge is very complex and very, very difficult. Second important understanding, second important kind of consideration while we're planning this webinar series was this, that in meeting our challenge, we do not seem to be on the right track. We do not seem to be doing it well. And when I say we, I mean we means government, we means professionals, we means academics, we means political class, whoever. So second important kind of observation that we started with was that our preparation, our response to urban challenge was not very adequate. Third point we made was this, that if you wanted to address the challenge, it is we who must do it. And we included government, we included people, we included professionals. Fourth point we made while we were discussing that this was an effort which no single individual or entity can do on its own. It cannot be done by government alone. It cannot be done by professionals alone. It cannot be done by political class alone. It cannot be done by civil society alone. And therefore, it required resources, skills, and abilities of large number of people to address the challenge. We would call it societal formation, a societal coalition to deal with and to work on the urban challenge. We also said, which was the fifth point, that if you want to kind of deal with urban challenge, we require a lot of innovations, a lot of new thoughts, a lot of new perspectives, lots of new technology, lots of new ideas. And therefore, it was very, very important that we bring this in. And as a matter of fact, if you remember, Wally and Dow, Secretary General of Habitat 2, had said that if you want to deal with our urban issues, we require revolution in urban problem solving. Nothing less than revolution will work if you want to solve our urban problem. And the last point we had was this, that in terms of that there is an urgency, not only climate change, there's an urgency in the context of managing our cities, that we don't have much time. If India's urban population is going to double in 30 more years, 2050, where do we have time? How prepared we are and how ready we are to kind of embrace the challenge. So these were more or less 6 very important considerations that led to us putting together this webinar series. We thought we'll create a platform, we'll invite people with ideas, we will share perspectives and knowledge, and we would in the process build up a coalition of people who are interested in working on urban challenges and dealing with urban issues. So while doing this, we have worked, as I said, 2.5 years, 86 webinars, about 400 speakers and participants and professionals across the world. We are now changing the track a bit. And this track is this, that for a long time, we've been talking in generalities. We talked the larger macro issues. And time has come for us to understand the urban issue, the urban challenge from the macro perspective. And therefore, we decided that let us take one city, and Bangalore is one city, around which we are organizing 6 webinars that Srikanth Saab and his party is helping us to do. We are then organizing 4 webinars helped by Seva Ahmedabad, where we looked at working of the poor and the servicing of the poor. We're doing 3 webinars in the next 3 months with an organization in Pune, which would look at microfinance, which would look at other things. And then, of course, we are developing few more seminars on governance. And so I'm essentially talking about 20 webinars in the next few months, which will focus on cities. So that is the kind of background in which we are making this new departure. And I'm really very thankful to Srikanth for making this possible. Before I stop and hand it over to Hariharan, I just wanted to make a small little observation. I don't know, Srikanth, if you know that now in the word Navnirman has a major relationship with Gujarat. It was in 1974 that the students' sort of movement and the middle class movement against corruption happened in Gujarat, which toppled Chimanbhai government ministry. And it also corresponded with JP's movement in Bihar, which were talked about total devolution. So I'm sure your Navnirman word has those connotations, and we look forward to hear you today and your friends and colleagues and your party workers over a period of next 6 webinars in terms of how it is happening. We have a huge expectation because this is an innovation and innovation worth looking at. So thank you very much and look forward to hearing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's 6:13. Good evening to all of you once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today because Srikanth called me, I think, a week ago and said, well, you know, I have some 4 or 5 people, each of them who will sort of anchor or bring in their elements in each of the 6 sessions that he's got starting from today. And to set the context and tone for what Srikanth will be offering you today, I thought I will share some 5-6 points that could make him think on what he will want to say, while it will also help you to understand the context in which he will be speaking. Well, what is that when you talk political innovations or innovations and municipal governance, you know, this is not something that is new, that is something that we know well enough in this country. When we look for anything new, one turns to look for examples, therefore, from other countries. Municipal governments, for instance, over the last maybe 15 years or so, in the United States, have been elevated to a very new status in the American federal system, and even in many of the South American countries. Brazil is one of them, or Argentina is another, Ecuador is another. In the US, it is due to devolution of federal and state responsibilities because they have a structure, although very different from ours, more or less like what we have in this country. And that devolution of federal and state responsibilities to the local level is a debate that you and I, all of us here, have had and want to see that we bring some positive directions there. And in South America, it has been attributed to the widespread recognition that they are the governments, the municipal corporations, that are most capable of such innovative behavior. We know, for example, local governments are likely to engage in innovation relatively more, I would like to think. We do not know what contributes to the perceived success or failure of such innovations, whether they are political or managerial. I won't say technical or technological. The number of webinars that an INHAF has done, or I have curated another institution called Alltech, which is running at over 128 webinars, is not consequential at all to my mind. It is not the number of such meetings that has ever counted. It is what we do after such meetings to engage participants and concerned citizens on the ground. That has been difficult for any institution. I accept failure too, as I've seen it in 3 different organizations in the country that I have been working with, beyond things that I do in one institution called Alltech. Now, it is a question that, why I bring this up is, it is a question that Srikanth, I'd like to think, will also dilate upon, the act of actual engagement from people in wards and neighborhoods. I've heard him many times. I've been to many of the BNP meetings, and I know that there is a consistent, extremely passionate, committed, and capable effort that is being made by them. I'd also like to believe that as a political party, Srikanth, as founder secretary, founder member and secretary, as well as all members of BNP, are engaged more fully than those who participate in e-meetings such as these. You might call them professional online engagements. They are not webinars to my mind. When I first invited Srikanth to consider curating a series that examines this canvas of municipal administration, he instantly said yes, God bless him. And it has now taken, I think, about 3 months. Ujjwala has been of great help to us to get here to this day when we host the first of this series. He has 5 more, as I said, in this series. And each time there is someone who will join him on building the story of what our cities need as political innovations, as approaches to governance. Hope also is that the recording will be managed by the organizers to reach the right people in governments and in municipal administrations. Today, between YouTube and a few other forums like that, we can reach out to a lot more people. And I'm hoping that it will also serve as a lasting archive for students of public policy or of urban planning, or even politicians of a new generation who, like Srikanth himself, who really mean what they say and are not caught in the brutal vortex of monies and diversions and so on. The central focus of this entire act, not just today, but of the series, is to explore all those factors that contribute to such political innovation, as he says, in municipal governments. And as perceived by, of course, members of BNP, Srikanth is just one face of BNP's multiple leaders. In fact, Dr. Soumya Raghavan is also here. She's been doing a lot of things to see that we get here to this evening. Now, how do we use, what are the things that he uses as procedures to determine such leadership and policy? What are the things that how does he think through these processes himself? And what are the other leaders doing to enable this? The last note that I want to make, maybe over the next 40 seconds to 60 seconds, is this. You talk innovation, let's say, all of us, whoever is participating here today, we have this, the risk of innovation being too often narrowly and mistakenly associated with technological or some digital-driven inputs and solutions. However, innovation is as much, as you know yourself, about culture, about leadership, about finance, about governance, of course, about people, as it is, I would say, about technology, as it is about technology or of data and so on. Lata is also here. Lata is the CEO of BNP, and I'm sure she will also contribute sometime as we go along. Innovation activities also vary very greatly in their nature, depending upon what you're working upon, the cities you're working on. Just now, Kirti mentioned something about Gujarat in 1977-78. All right, the last note, the goal of this 6 series presentation. So what is the goal here? I can tell you this, that it's coming from a set of various professionals who are committed to and are capable of steering urban governance, not just speaking. There are people who have been doing things on the ground. And Srikanth has been careful in selecting such people who will speak in the next few sessions. Over those calendars that Ujjwala is working on. The idea is to understand, the goal is to understand how municipalities can enhance their ability to intentionally and very consistently generate politically as well as culturally and technologically innovative solutions, and to ensure they have the necessary resources to deliver them. Well, Srikanth, in this first of the 6 editions, will reflect, I would like to think, this evening, on how innovations can be understood, analyzed in different ways, and from different perspectives. Srikanth, you know, the way you said it over this chat that we had, I think the day before with Soumya, you are hoping to see that you begin at the beginning of it all, how you were one of those, callous kind of citizens who never even, voted. So I will leave this floor to you from here at 6:21, 5 minutes, 6 minutes more than we expected. Take this from here and see what you want to do over the next 20, 25 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I have requested, and we both have agreed, that he will speak for the first 20, 25 minutes or so. Share with you reflections on that larger canvas that he's been, sort of living through for the last, say, 12, 15 years. And then to invite some glimpse into your minds, questions from you, insights from you, thoughts, whatever that you want to share with him, will help him to see that he takes a second spell of maybe 15 minutes, and then we open it again for Q&A. Over to you, Srikanth.
Thank you, Hari. First of all, thanks to Kirti Bhai and INHAF for doing this series. I know you've been doing a much larger series over a period of time, but this one is really unique, partnering with a newbie political party like ours and trying to bring more awareness around the concept of municipal governance and how it can fundamentally change the way our cities are not just designed, but also ultimately managed in a way that our basic civic amenities are top class and we are able to build world-class cities accordingly. Thanks, Hari, for that introduction as well. And I thought while we start with a series to go through what municipal governance should look like, the reason why I wanted to talk about my journey as part of the first session is I fundamentally believe that urban misgovernance, or all the misgovernance that we are seeing in cities, and specifically in a city like Bengaluru, stems from urban apathy. Very often we tend to blame politicians, saying politicians are corrupt, politicians are inefficient, politicians do not care. While much of it is true, we generally tend to ignore one important aspect, which is our own apathy. And when I talk about citizens' apathy, I don't take a moral high ground, because I was pretty much a person who was, Hari used the term callous, but I would use the term, apathetic. That is, I just did not care. People are very often shocked when I tell them that I had never voted in my life till about 7-8 years back. Probably I would request now Ujjwala to put up a presentation. I have a presentation which I wanted to sort of take people through. When I tell people that I had not voted, many of them are shocked. But at some level, people also realize that it pretty much describes many of us, right? As urban, middle class, upper middle class citizens, we think that the political system is dirty. There's no point in engaging with that system. It's a dirty system. It's a system where my participation is probably not going to make any difference to, and hence, what is the point? And it is in that context I wanted to present my own journey. And if this journey can inspire more and more people to either start participating or ultimately get deeply involved, it would be wonderful for me to see, because I believe if we need good governance at the municipal level, if we need change, if we want our cities, and specifically a city like Bengaluru, to become beautiful, we don't have a choice but for citizens to start taking part. Over the next 6 sessions, various team members will be taking sessions on how citizens can involve, how citizens can actually play a very crucial role in bringing about that change. I'm not going to cover that today, but I wanted to cover how urban apathy is also an equally important contributor to urban misgovernance as much as political apathy is an important reason as well. I come from a corporate background. I've had a successful corporate life. I come from a strong academic background as well. If I were to look back 7, 8 years back, I can't even imagine where I've reached now because my life has been very comfortable and cushy with a nice family, nice corporate life, earning a lot of money. There's nothing much to really complain about from that perspective. And in that context, I was a non-voter. Ujjwala, if you can move on to the next slide. I had not voted primarily from the perspective of saying, what is the point of voting? The choice in front of us is usually between somebody who's a criminal versus a thief versus somebody who's incompetent, somebody who's uneducated, and so on. The choice, as the cliche goes, is between the devil and the deep blue sea. And I used to vehemently argue what is the point of voting, because there's absolutely no point in choosing between the devil and the deep blue sea. But I didn't realize that my life was going to take a substantial turn in a different direction, which will lead all the way to me founding a political party. Ujjwala, if you can move on. If I were to look back at my journey, it was completely serendipitous. All that has happened completely by accident. None of this was planned. But if I were to look back at this journey, I would say there were 4 key defining moments or turning points, as I would like to call them, which has shaped my journey. I would say which has reshaped. Otherwise, if these had not happened, I probably would have continued living my life, continued my corporate world, continued to earn money, just led that simple life. But here I am today talking to you as the founder of BNP, which is a political party. Ujjwala, on to the next slide. So let me take them one by one, right? Which are those 4 turning points in my life that shaped my career, and I say that has shaped my destiny here. Number 1, I say that my social life actually started with an anonymous letter. It's a very interesting story. I repeat, this whole journey and what I've gotten into, it all started with one anonymous letter. I live in an apartment complex on Old Madras Road. I've been living there for 15 years. Some of us had moved in very early into our apartment complex in 2008. So we all had gotten together. We had set up the apartment association. We had set up the bylaws. And then we had stepped out of the association and let a few other people take charge in the managing committee over a period of time. Sometime in 2012, 4 years after I'd moved into the community and 2 years after we had set up the whole thing and handed it over to a set of people, when anonymous letter hit all our mailboxes. One of the residents in our community had put in a letter in all our mailboxes, and it was a little bit of a shocking letter for all of us, because it pretty much said that there is a lot of misgovernance happening now in our apartment complex. There is probably some amount of corruption that has crept in, and that person was very anguished that things had degenerated to a very bad level. And interestingly, he ended that person who put that anonymous letter in our mailboxes, he finished that letter by taking the names of 2 of us, saying, myself and one more friend of mine, both of whom had been instrumental in setting up the whole association. It was almost like a request to the 2 of us, saying, you were instrumental in setting up the whole affairs. You have done a great job in setting up the bylaws and setting up the whole thing. You have passed on the baton to somebody else, but now things seem to have degenerated. Why are you not getting back? It was almost like a trigger for me to say, hey, why is this happening? And it's important for me to really get back in, because we were all very passionate about things going in the right direction in our own apartment complex. It's a small apartment complex with just 81 flats, but we had set it up very passionately, and it It was almost like a request that came to the two of us. And by the time I had built up a lot of goodwill through a lot of initiatives, and people then came to me and said, why don't you take over as the secretary of the apartment complex? So in 2030, I took charge again as the secretary of my apartment complex. Thankfully, there was not much of corruption, even though there were some small pockets here and there, but it was more of misgovernance that was there. When I say misgovernance, to my dismay, I realized that the sewage treatment plant in our apartment complex had gone kaput. The water treatment plant was not working well. The water management system between Kaveri water and borewell water, that was not working well. The fire management system was not properly in order. Garbage, there were a lot of issues that we were facing, so on and so forth. A lot of the things that are very, very integral to the running of an apartment complex, some of the key aspects relating to water, waste, garbage, electricity, etc., they were all not in proper working order. So over the next 1 year, I took on the responsibility, I put together a team, and we gradually started putting things in place one by one by one. And at the end of the 1 year tenure, it was an extremely gratifying tenure for me, extremely rewarding tenure from the perspective that every system was set right. In fact, can you move on to the next slide? One of the fundamental things that was happening was we have a sewage treatment plant in our apartment complex. The vendor who had been engaged to manage the sewage treatment plant, instead of managing the sewage treatment plant, there was a bypass to the stormwater drain. That person was letting raw sewage out into the stormwater drain. It was actually criminal, right? It should not have been done, but that was what was happening, not just in my apartment complex, many apartment complexes. I was shocked beyond measure because the same sewage through the stormwater drain was ultimately entering the lake and it was causing the pollution. And it was completely unacceptable for me. So we put task forces together, one for sewage treatment plant, one for water management, one for garbage, one for the fire management system, and so on. And one by one, we started setting things right. Interestingly, before I took charge in that tenure, I didn't even know what a sewage treatment plant was, and I didn't even know how it worked. But guess what? It didn't really need that expertise because I was able to talk to relevant experts. We were able to reach out to vendors. We were able to read up some stuff. And I developed a good understanding of what a sewage treatment plant was. And we were able to engage with vendors. And by just applying basic principles and common sense, I was able to bring in the right set of people who could get this in place for us. It did not require rocket science. It did not require a great deal of understanding or expertise to set things right. But over a period of 6 months to 1 year, all of this was set in place. So the first key learning that I had was if there was integrity, if there was intent, and if there was competence not to do things but to understand how things work and to put systems in place, I realized that there are a lot of things that we can accomplish. Even though it was at a small community level, it gave me a great degree of satisfaction to see that the small things that we can do at the local level can lead to a big change. Interestingly, not just the sewage treatment plant, at that time, there was no concept of segregation that was there or segregation of garbage. We actually put a system in place to segregate garbage as early as 2013. And we actually put in a process in place and we imposed penalties on people who were not segregating. It was a completely new system at that time. There was a lot of resistance from people, but we managed to get it done. So the fundamental learning that came for me was change lies in the small things that we do. Change lies in each of us taking part in the process, taking part in the system. It was at a community level without any doubt. But even at the community level, if we didn't have passionate people getting involved, we could see that the systems were degenerating over a period of time and a lot of social evils were getting formed because of that. So that was one key learning that I had. Moving on to the next slide, Ujjwala. The second key thing that had happened was, interestingly, what happened during my tenure. I had actually started interacting with a few of my neighboring apartment complexes. I had reached out to them purely from the perspective of learning from one another, forming a group, exchanging ideas, and see if we could work together for the common good of all of us. But one interesting thing happened, and that's why I call it destiny. Of all the years, the Bengaluru Water Supply and Sewerage Board chose that year when I was the secretary of my apartment complex to pass a rule where they hiked water tariff specifically for apartments by 300%, calling us as bulk consumers. And we couldn't understand why they were calling us bulk consumers. It was a ridiculous rule because we were all individual houses consuming exactly the same amount of water like everybody else was. But suddenly they were classifying apartment residents as bulk consumers and charging us 300% more. It was unacceptable. It just ramped up our water bill by 300 to 400%. And that's when I mooted the idea to all my neighboring communities saying, why don't we start a federation of apartment complexes where we create a platform to fight against such harassment that we were facing from this government and civic agency. So I formed this federation called as Bangalore Apartments Federation. Quite a few apartments got together. Then one of the first things that I did along with others was we started meeting the civic agency officials, politicians, ministers, etc. And we started representing this issue to them saying, hey, we seem to be getting imposed with some ridiculous and unreasonable rules. What is the origin of this? And interestingly, it was not just the water tariff hike. There were a whole host of things that started happening. They started imposing additional cesses, tariffs, rules, etc. And I started engaging with many politicians, ministers, and officials. That was one big bodh tree moment for me, like what Buddha underwent sitting under a tree. Every official that we met, every minister, every politician that we met said the same thing. Oh, you guys, you are living in apartment complexes. You are rich people. You do not come out and vote. You are not a vote bank for us. You don't matter to us. And hence, if we impose a rule on you, you better listen to us and you abide by it. You don't have a choice. And they were able to say it openly to our faces, saying, this is what it is. You don't have a choice. And that was the second key learning for me. I, till that point of time, had not voted in my life. And I realized that by not voting, we were actually inflicting misery upon ourselves. Politicians listen only to two things. They listen either to votes, which is understandable, or they listen to notes, that is money. Money is something that we can't throw at them. But if we vote, they actually consider us as a vote bank. They listen to us. And I realized that by not voting, the whole misgovernance that we were seeing, we were inflicting it upon ourselves. So from there on, I became a convert. I started actively propagating to everybody saying, we need to come out and vote in big numbers. If we need our voice to be heard, if we want change, we need to go out there and vote. And even as of last week, when Bengaluru came out and voted, Bengaluru had the least of the voting percentages across Karnataka. It's a problem that's still not gone away. It's a problem that we are still grappling with. But I think things have improved quite a bit from where we were a few years back to now. But that was a very, very important learning for me. Moving on to the next slide. People ask, did voting actually change anything? Actually, it has changed a lot of things. Over the last 5 years, Bangalore Apartments Federation has evolved into a federation of 1,200 apartment complexes. In a lot of apartment complexes, voting percentages have increased quite significantly through a sustained campaign that we ran. And the reality is, in the current election that happened, this article came out about 2 weeks back, 1st May to be precise. Parties have started wooing apartment residents. We had multiple parties, Congress, BJP, JDS, Aam Aadmi Party, all trying to engage with apartment residents and trying to understand the problems of apartment residents and saying that we want to solve these problems for you. How did that happen? There's only one reason. They have now started treating apartment complexes as vote banks. So one of the things that I say is that we might not be able to Even if we are not able to influence the quality of politicians, even the politicians who are there, by voting, you can actually force them to do at least a few good things, if not all good things. So that was another important learning that came through for me. And we could see a sea change that happened from 2015 to 2023. Moving on to the next slide, Ujjwala. The third turning point that came was in, I would say, on December 14, 2017. I'm giving a precise date, 14th December 2017. There was one particular rule that the government had passed relating to sewage treatment plants, where they had mandated old apartment complexes to have to be implementing sewage treatment plants, which was practically impossible to do because old apartments are not designed for that. There were safety issues that were coming up, but they were just not willing to listen to us. The government was getting wrapped by National Green Tribunal and Pollution Control Board saying the lakes are getting polluted, and the government in turn started targeting apartment residents and complexes, saying we need you to do something. Same thing, when we went and asked, they said, you're not a vote bank for us, you don't matter. Whatever we tell you, you better start listening to us. 1 year from December 2016, we kept on fighting a battle. I, in fact, made 9 trips to the National Green Tribunal in Delhi fighting a case. And I realized that even the judiciary was failing us because all that we were getting was adjournment after adjournment after adjournment. I used to go all the way, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, catch a 5 a.m. flight, reach Delhi by 8 a.m., reach the National Green Tribunal by 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, when the hearing came up, adjourned. All it took was for 5 seconds for the judge to say, this is adjourned to another date next month. It was just extremely painful, trip after trip after trip, spending my money, waking up at 3 o'clock, going there, spending the whole day just to get the whole adjournment done. And finally, when I got a hearing in front of the chairman or chairperson of the National Green Tribunal, all that he said was he couldn't even understand the issue. We represented for 1 minute. He said, I don't understand this issue. You have to come for 3 or 4 more hearings. That is the day I said, I came back. I told our team, we are now undertaking a protest. The government has failed us. The civic agencies have failed us. The judiciary has failed us. Let's take this political. So we, from early September to early December, I'd set a date, 2nd December 2017. I said, we need to undertake a protest. I set a target for our team. I said, we are going to get 10,000 people out on a protest. And when I said 10,000 people, people were shocked. My fellow governing council members were shocked. They said, how are we going to get 10,000 people? I said, I don't know. Let's reach out. Let's engage with people. Let's engage with citizens. Let's make them understand the gravity of the issue. And we have to get 10,000 people out onto the streets to protest. We picked the date, 2nd December 2017, to undertake a protest. 3 months of intense effort, structured process, reaching out to people across the city. 2nd December, we asked people across the city, specifically residents of apartment complexes, to come out and carry a placard saying we cannot implement this rule. What happened? Moving on to the next slide. On 2nd December 2017, when I put this thing up on 1st of September 2017, saying we need to get 10,000 people out, my own fellow team members didn't believe that it was possible. But through a structured and intense campaign that we ran, engaging with citizens, believe it or not, on 2nd December 2017, 10,500 people. We kept count area by area, and we got people to come out. 10,500 people came out and stood in protest against that rule of retrospective STP imposed by the government on apartment residents. The result of this campaign was on 3rd December, we made the front pages, the headlines on pretty much all the newspapers. And believe it or not, 14th December 2017, within 2 weeks, we didn't have to do anything. The entire government machinery, barring the chief minister, the number 2 home minister, the number 3 Bengaluru development minister, the mayor, the water supply board chairman, the BBMP commissioner, the pollution control board chairman, all of them in one room. They called us for a meeting. I made a 1-hour presentation. At the end of it, They asked us, what do you want? I said, I want the rule to be reversed. Believe it or not, in 1 minute, the Bengaluru Development Minister of that time, Mr. KJ George, who has also just gotten re-elected as an MLA, it took him 1 minute to reverse that rule. And he invited the media, and in front of the media, he declared that this rule, which was imposed 1 year back, is now reversed with immediate effect. And the biggest learning that came for me at that time is we, the citizens, have all the power in our hands, provided we are able to come together, provided we are able to unite, provided we work together for a cause. And without citizens coming together, we would not be able to see the change. And that was one big learning that I had from that protest and the subsequent result that we got out of it. Then last point, coming to the next slide, the fourth turning point. Even in 2017 and all, I had no intention of starting a political party or getting involved in politics. What we had done was we then started getting more and more apartments together and started building up a movement where we were, generating more and more awareness and fighting on these causes. But there were two specific incidents. I would say it's not actually just one incident. Two things that changed my life completely. Number one, in 2018, after all this protest had happened, I think in March or something, one of the presidents of one of the apartment complexes in South Bangalore, he called me on one fine day and he said, I have a problem. They were segregating garbage 100%. Through Bangalore Apartment Federation, we had run a campaign across multiple apartment complexes in the city, and we had gotten pretty much every single apartment complex to segregate garbage 100%. And we have a concept of a blue bin, green bin, and a red bin. Blue bin was for dry waste, green bin was for wet waste, red bin was for sanitary waste. So we used to keep these big bins outside and for the vendor to come and collect it and then dispose it in an environment friendly manner. But interestingly, what was happening in that apartment complex was there was a contractor that they were working with. That guy used to come with his vehicle. He used to pick up all this garbage together, and then he used to mix it in front of the gate in one single vehicle, mix everything and probably go and dump it God knows where. And predictably, all the residents were upset, saying, we are putting in all this effort to segregate garbage. Here is the contractor who's coming in and mixing everything. What's the point in doing all of this? And what we had done through the federation was we had suggested the name of two agencies called as Sahas and Hasirudala, who actually were charging 3 or 4 times more than these contractors, but used to take the garbage separately and dispose of them. Interestingly, what happened was when they wanted to go with Hasirudala, they got a call from the husband of the corporator. The contractor, the garbage contractor, was nothing but a benami of the corporator. And a call came to the president of this apartment complex from the husband of the corporator, who threatened this apartment complex and this president with 3 things, saying, if you choose to go with another contractor, and if you do not continue with this contractor, I will ensure that the road in front of your house is dug up. I will ensure that the khata, the ownership certificate, which is still in the builder's name, will not be transferred to your individual houses. And I will ensure that the Pollution Control Board issues notices to you, charging you lakhs and lakhs of rupees as penalty, even if you're in complaints. It was a shocking moment for them, being threatened by an elected representative or the husband of an elected representative. For what? For doing things the right way. In essence, the role or the job that the elected representative was supposed to do, they were doing it. And not only were they being threatened for doing it, they were being threatened if, or rather this elected representative was destroying whatever they were doing, and they were being threatened for doing the right stuff. And despite my best efforts in telling them that I've started the federation so that we can all stick together, please do not cave into these demands. But ultimately, they were worried about what these guys would do to them. They ended up going back to that original contractor. And believe it or not, despite all the segregation efforts, that garbage in a mixed form was ending up in landfills. It was a moment that I would say significantly altered my life, because it was one key moment that made me realize that notwithstanding all the effort that we were putting in as citizens, if we didn't have good elected representatives, we were in for a really tough time and the city had no future. But then there was one incident that happened, which was even more, I would say, life-changing for me, a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Right in front of my apartment complex, we have a traffic junction, which is an extremely dangerous traffic junction where the traffic speeds up. And we have been crying for a skywalk at that junction for a long time because we ourselves used to cross that road at that spot. It was very dangerous. And we had been going to the corporator ward committee meetings and entreating them for a skywalk. It just didn't happen. And as fate would have it, in 2018, a girl who was trying to cross the road, a 17-year-old girl who was trying to cross the road, she got run over by a bus and lost her life in a fraction of a second. Why? Because there was no skywalk. And was this something that was an accident? I don't believe it was an accident. I would say it was a planned murder. We knew that this problem had existed and we had been crying hoarse. Because of that civic apathy, because of that apathy from that corporator and from the officials, because of the lack of a skywalk, a 17-year-old girl lost her life. And this is while this is an incident that I keep talking about, subsequently we have seen so many lives lost due to potholes and other issues that have been happening. And one key learning that I realized that day was we cannot expect the kind of people that we have elected to deliver governance for them, for us. Politics, it was a moment of strong realization for me that politics has been or misgovernance is happening, and politics is dirty not just because the bad people got in, it was also because the good people stayed out. And that is the time I said, this is something that needs to change. In a way, these two incidents were the seeds for ultimately I getting into political life and saying we need to get into municipal governance, at least if we have to change our city at a fundamental level. Ujjwala, if you can move on to the slide, next slide.
Srikanth, we have spent 30 minutes. Just keep
Yeah,
that much.
and the slide after that, I have come to the conclusion. Can you move on to the next slide? Ujjwala, can you move on to the next slide, please? So the fundamental principle that I'm working on right now is the state of infrastructure and civic amenities in our city is in shambles. We all keep cribbing and complaining. You know what? The fundamental thing when it comes to politics is we all discuss, debate, fight on religion, caste, and all kinds of issues. But when it comes to municipal governance and civic issues, we just do not engage in any kind of a discussion. So I would leave this thought behind with all of us. If we need our cities to become better, if we want a city like Bengaluru to become a world-class city with world-class infrastructure and with world-class civic amenities, if we keep relying on the time and tested politicians that we keep electing and expecting anything better from them. I was just having a discussion with Kirti Bhai before we joined. If you look at the MLAs and corporators that we've been electing, it's pretty much the same set of people that we keep electing again and again and again. Expecting change from them is not possible. It's like trying and doing the same thing again and again, expecting different results. It's not going to happen. The only way the city can change is if the good citizens start coming together and taking part in politics, to start with by voting, then consequently taking part in area sabhas and ultimately getting into politics. That's the only way a city like Bengaluru can change and can change for the better. And that is the initiative that we are trying to get into and implement through Bengaluru Navanirmana Party by getting more and more good citizens to come in, take part, and slowly start ushering in change and good governance at the grassroots level. I'm happy to take any questions from you, Hari, or from others.
Yeah, sure.
There is one interesting conclusion to that skywalk story also, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But back over to you, Hari, and back over to all of you. Thank you so much.
There is Sandhya Narayan here. Narayan, Sandhya, nice to catch up like this. Would you want to speak? We can put you onto the panel list. You can raise your hand and we will do the rest, Sandhya.
By the way, Sandhya is one of the first people with whom I talked
know.
about the concept of Bengaluru Navanirbana Party when I started.
I'm sure.
Hi, Sandhya.
I guess it was the same time that you and I met also.
Yeah,
in the same month.
absolutely.
And,
Exactly.
Sandhya, you want? Yeah. Well, I think she wants to say yes. Yes. Ujjwala, you like to see how you can sort of shift her to the speaker mode. Give her speaker rights. And the
Yes.
other, yeah, thanks. And Lalita, you heard this story before, Srikanth's story, I'm sure. You quit a job with the IT sector. You decided that you will see that you take this role that you play now of being the CEO of BNP. What do you have to say? Anything quickly that you want to ask him, perhaps? Maybe there was something new in as insight that he offered today, Lalita, before Sandhya comes in. Oh, okay, Lalita is also on that in the list. She has got to be moved, Soumya. Well, while they come in, Srikanth, let me ask you this. Go back to that December. The 2nd of December is when you sort of mobilized 40,000 people, 10,000 people, etc. You said that prior to that, therefore in November, you set a target, with your fellow GC members. What was that process that got you to get 10,000 people? How many people made that happen? And what did it cost you? You beat all those 3 pillars of the Constitution and said, okay, I will take the 4th or the 1st, let us say, and you decided that you will take this route. You also are saying, therefore, I can do what I want to avoid politics as a citizen, as an educated citizen, but you're also saying that politics will not stay away from you. So keeping that in mind, tell us what happened as a process that got you 10,000 people. That is important for people to understand if they want to use politics as an instrument. Lata has also come in now. Not Lata, Lalitamba is here. Okay, Sandhya, wonderful. There are some hands raised, but you can respond to this and then we'll go to the rest.
In fact, the principle that I applied at that time is the principle that now I'm using in BNP also to build up our teams. The principle is very simple, Hari, and I would call as the principle of decentralization. While a thought, a concept emerges centrally in terms of what we want to do or what we want to accomplish, the only way to execute it, the only way to sort of roll it out is by decentralizing, by involving more and more people down below. So what I had done at that time was I created a structure where we organized the city into 4 different parts, and each part north, east, west, and south. I created the concept of a zonal leader at that time, and I got them to buy into the concept, and through them I got them to identify who are all the apartment complexes who were there in their zones, right? Then they in turn reached out to people in those apartment complexes, and then we appointed people who were going to take charge of 3-4 apartment complexes at a time. They took on that responsibility, and in each apartment complex, or as I call it as a residential community, we identified 3-4 people who were going to be our what I would call as feet on the street. They were going to take the responsibility for that community. So we created a structure where the communication, the concept, everything was devised centrally, but we created a structure through which we started disseminating all of this, and we got each one of them to engage with residents in their respective communities. That worked out beautifully well, right? And then when we rolled it out on 2nd December, it was a very simple thing. We had created WhatsApp groups in each area, and we just told them that this is what we expect out of you. People were willing to take on ownership and responsibility, and all that we had to do was guide them, mentor them, give them instructions as to how we need to go about doing this, and the passion that they showed on the ground, and the structure and the structured manner in which they went about doing it. It was a breeze. In fact, on that day, I didn't even take any responsibility. All that I had to do was I went from area to area, interacted with people, see what was done. I myself was amazed at the turnout that we had.
I know.
So I believe that the concept of decentralization, it's not just in terms of organizing a protest. If we need good civic and municipal governance, the only way, I repeat, it might sound as a very strong statement, the only way to do it is not just to involve citizens, but to decentralize. If we don't decentralize, you can create a Swachh Bharat campaign. You can create beautiful campaigns at the central level or at the state level or even at the city level. It will never get implemented efficiently at the grassroots level.
Sure. You know,
that's my biggest.
Yeah, I got it. Santosh Udupai is writing that he's 46 years old and that it is the first election that he sort of went and put his chap on. You know, Nota this time, Srikanth, all of you know, ladies and gentlemen, all of you here as participants know this, 65,000 votes went on Nota, while no more than about 8,000 votes, I think, or 7,000 votes went for AAP. I'm talking of the Bangalore's 28 whatever constituencies, right? Something that should make us all think. Well, if those votes had gone to AAP, what would have happened to the thin, wafer thin margins that people were wrestling with between the Congress and the BJP is another story, Srikanth. But the important thing is that people like Santosh have woken up and are saying, I will also participate. Now it's Sandhya Narayanan. Would you want to speak? It's nice to catch up with you, Sandhya, now like this.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I didn't expect our panelists. And is there a specific question for me? Because
he spoke about the story of, how they took pains to segregate, and you have been working on waste forever for a few hundred years. And then this mess that is happening. I don't think the story has changed. Has it changed in all these apartments? Anyway, the business of the contractors and the vice-like grip that they have, the corporators have on this whole business of waste in Bangalore, 5,000 tons a day, continues. Is that right, Sandhya? So I thought I'd ask you to see if you will want to respond to what Srikanth portrayed as one story.
I actually joined a little late. I didn't particularly hear what Srikanth had to say.
Enough. This is
but maybe I
can,
catching a thread of what Srikanth is talking about now. I think my thought process is the follows. There is a level of self-organization that a place like Bangalore has shown, that citizens can come forward and self-organize and, take responsibility for what they're doing and all of that. But at some level, they tend to hit a glass ceiling. And at that level is where it kind of, there's a touch point with the municipal governance. So the municipal governance there cannot afford to be passive. So if we have not seen the desired outcomes in SWM, it is only because I think in some way the municipal governance has not been able to keep up with the progressive requirement of what was needed to achieve our final outcomes for solid waste. We made some headway with the court coming in, but there has been no traction I can't say no traction, but it has been insufficient traction or responsiveness from the municipal governance, because like Srikanth rightly said a little while ago, while the Swachh Bharat now has caught on to the game and is doing a lot of frameworks, but the municipal governance is not being responsive. The local ULB is not being responsive to these central laws, nor are they being responsive to community participation. So they are actually required to extend both hands, one hand towards the community side and the other hand towards the framework of laws. And they have fallen short in a very big way, which is why we have not seen the required progress or outcomes that we should have seen, given that we have all stayed engaged for so many years.
Sure. Lalita, your turn, your take.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for giving me this chance. Yeah, I also have worked in IT for 2 decades and was actually settled, right, with family. Similar story like what Srikanth said, was very comfortable. Doing also once this Swachh Bharat and all this segregation started, I too started in HSR layout. We were one of those which picked up. HSR is known for many first time initiatives. So this started. And I have also been, our apartment is one of the members of BAF. So even before BNP, I knew Srikanth, and I know how meticulously we were meeting in MG Road on every first Saturday of the month. I remember 2-3 hours debating what, it's not only about being sarcastic about the problems, but what can we be part of the solution, etc. So I felt that there is something more that we need to do. And when it came to BNP, and when Srikanth shared this, that this is an organization, can we all move it together? I think I also felt, they say, right, midlife crisis. I had reached that tipping, this one. I also felt for many of the civic issues at our local levels, it's more of please can you do it, etc., than getting to get it done, and several follow-ups, etc. So what in principle is missing is, I think, the integrity, intent, and passion. That is something missing among the local governance, and that is not even given priority. Even as we speak, you see there is no election since last closer to 3 years now, right? So this local administration, it's like a foundation for any city. If you have better wards managed at the local levels, what beautiful, you can make one city, one ward, model ward, and everybody competes so beautifully, the city can become. So that is the day I decided,
Absolutely, I got
if
that.
my passion is local, if I have to do, we cannot be in the complaint mode. We also have to be part of that solution. I echoed with the words Srikanth had said, and I believed, I mean, I also echoed the similar concept, and having seen BAF from where it was to where it is today, somewhere it echoed me, yes, I can be part of this organization, and we have to move it together. One person will be an initiator, but that needs a lot of support systems. And I said, what better? We will create better municipal governance, and for the near future. Definitely, many countries have gone through this, right? Even Singapore. So we can take cues, good things from them, and we will definitely do something for our city. Many times it strikes me, whether is it a right step? There is so much of thing in the current political system. Does it scare us, etc.? But if we don't do right now, then when? I think we need to take one step per day and then move towards good governance. And I believe it is possible.
Before I invite Lata Purushothaman, Srikanth, back to you. See, your relevance today is in the space of advocacy and such just now. Your relevance actually deepens and takes, a lot of significance only when you have corporator elections, because you are a party who are committed to only battling the corporator elections, right?
Yes.
The municipal elections. Therefore, when do you expect the municipal elections to sort of come about? You know what happened in UP just
In
now.
fact, this is a question I've been faced with for the last 2.5, 3 years now, Hari.
For the benefit of all the others, I'm asking this question. I know your answer personally.
I've actually stopped answering that question primarily because I tell people, if you're able to have some of our corporators in, we can start bringing about a change. But I tell my team members, I keep pushing them, irrespective of whether when the elections are happening and whether we are able to get a lot of people in as corporators, let's start working towards solving all these civic issues. It is possible to do it at some scale without even getting into power. In fact, I would like to take a small detour here. That Skywalk story, that story of that 17-year-old girl who lost her life because of the absence of a skywalk. A lot of people ask me, right, the system is corrupt, inefficient people. Can we really get work done? You don't have the support of MLAs. The big parties will eat you up. How will you go about bringing about change, right? And to all of them, I can only add this story. Give me another 2 minutes on this, Hari. It's a very important part of the story that people need to know. For all those who feel that the system cannot change, who feel hopeless, helpless, frustrated, angry, yes, we need to feel all of those emotions, but there is an added feeling that I want to add to that, which is hope and optimism. And where does that hope and optimism stem from? Here is the conclusion to that story of that skywalk. In 2018, when this issue happened, I, along with a few others, started building this up again in terms of a momentum. Finally, since we did not get any results, we again did a protest. We knew how to do a protest. We did a local area protest in that area. It again got coverage, and finally work got sanctioned to do a skywalk there.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, within 3 or 4 months of the work starting, the road was dug up on both sides of the road. It got stuck up there. It didn't move on from there. Once again, our journey started going to the ward committee meetings, meeting the corporator, trying to figure out what's happening. We didn't get any answers. Right? All that we kept on hearing was, in Kannada, they used to say, Agatte, Agatte, which means it will happen, it will happen. But nothing moved. Finally, we went to the media, and the media covered an article, and that article is still there on the internet. If you search for Beniganahalli Skywalk, you will see that article come up by Bangalore Mirror. And you know what that article said? It quoted the ward corporator, Meenakshi, saying, the work started because citizens put pressure, but now the work has been stopped because a senior politician wanted to discuss something with the contractor. It was very obvious for us what that thing was. The senior politician, again, I don't want to get into who it is. You will know, right? When the corporator says senior politician, we know what that one level above is. He wanted a bribe, which the contractor was unwilling to pay, and the work got stuck there. And for 1.5 years, we kept on fighting. And by the time I had started the party also, and interestingly, in 2020, something interesting happened. September 2020, the BBMP elections were supposed to happen. It did not happen. The term of the corporator came to an end. And nodal officers were appointed to each and every ward, to each of the 198 wards. And my ward also got a nodal officer who was effectively playing the role of a corporator in the absence of the corporator. It was a nodal officer who I knew extremely well, an IAS officer who was interestingly the special commissioner for solid waste management of Bengaluru at that time. And he took charge as a nodal officer. In the very first meeting, ward committee meeting that we had in October 2020, I took up the issue with him. You know, the interesting thing, he said first said not possible because, but I said the project is already sanctioned. Then he understood the background. He put me on to the chief engineer of road infrastructure. I talked to the chief engineer, who in turn put me on to the team. And believe it or not, 2 months flat, in exactly 2 months, December 2020, without a single rupee of bribe paid, without the involvement or the intervention of the MLA or the MP or anybody else, purely through BBMP, and this is purely within the ambit of BBMP. The MLA has no role to play in this. The skywalk got done. A divider was put in, in the middle of the road so that people can't cross the road. We got that project done.
Right.
And it's not an isolated incident,
Good
right?
example.
Like this,
You know,
we were able to get many such projects across the city done.
You know, there is one question, Srikanth. I got that. You know, I'm saying.
Yeah, but let me just complete it. For people who feel very frustrated and angry about things not happening, we don't understand the municipal governance structure. Very often people think that the MLA controls things. The MLA actually has no role, no say in municipal governance. If we have a good corporator or a nodal officer in the corporator's absence, and if we have conscientious citizens who can work along with the corporator and the nodal officer, we can accomplish a lot of things. That was a very key learning for me that happened in 2020. We redoubled our efforts. After that, we have done a lot of things in Lalita's area. We have leaders, Pungodai, Indra, many such leaders in different areas. Even without getting into power, we are doing things. Imagine if some of us become corporators, I think we can accomplish a lot more.
Sure.
That is the lesson in it and the learning in it for not just me, for all of us. Yes, Hari.
In fact, you know, there are examples even from South America now, at least 3 countries, where demunicipalizing is even being accepted by Bretton Woods institutions when they want to come and fund projects in cities. That is, World Bank-like institutions are also saying, hey, you come in with projects like these, which are demunicipalized, it'll work. You are coming from the context of civic issues. But there are these other 3 things, you know, education, health, welfare. You know, those are issues that Delhi has in some ways sort of addressed. I don't know what is
those
good,
things come out of the state government, right? But I'm saying
correct.
The way the city is administered at the grassroots level, when we talk of concepts like sustainability, right? Civic infrastructure.
Right.
The only government that matters is the
Yeah.
municipal government.
Sure.
We should not be demunicipalizing. In fact, municipalities should be governed and administered better.
Yeah.
And yes, with participation from global funding agencies,
Yeah.
World Banks, the IMFs, and all of that, we
Yeah.
can actually do a lot more.
Right.
For
You
that,
know,
we need
yeah.
good elected representatives, good people who have, as I keep saying, we need integrity, intent, and competence. Not competence in terms of how, let's say, a road is to be laid or a drain is to be constructed.
Yeah.
Competence to learn how systems can be built and implemented. That's all that we need.
Right. Lata, your turn to ask. And Ujjwala, if you think Lalita has not raised hand again, maybe you can lower that. Lata, your turn.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Srikanth, for such a nice overview of what you have done so far. I'm Lata Purushothaman, all the way from Germany. I lived in Bangalore for several years, and then I got frustrated, I must say this. But unlike you, I moved out of Bangalore, and I was like, yeah, this city will never change. Heavy pollution, the roads are bad. What we can do? So come back to Germany, where I did my PhD, and work for 2 good decades, and come back with some money, buy a small land next to the airport because the traffic is such a bad issue in Bangalore, and make a nice city in Bangalore, that small village of my land, which I would buy in 20 years. So that was my thinking. So please bypass my ignorance. When I came to know about your party, which was yesterday, to be honest, when I joined you, I'm not much aware of what you guys are doing it until this webinar. And I'm super amazed to see this, that some people always complain like me, to be honest, and some people are actually working on it. And they're working in their root cause level. They're not only looking for the complaints, the problems as such, but they are looking for a solution. And this is exactly what I wanted to do it, being in Bangalore, but I didn't have any vision. Like, how should I do it? I go to a road, I make a video, I post it in a tweet, on a Twitter or on my Insta and complain about it. Like, the road was just made 3 months ago, and now a single rain or a couple of days it was raining, and then it's gone. So I used to hate it, to the this frustration which you're talking about, right? I completely relate with you, and I want to be associated with you and see what we can bring
Sure.
change.
Good.
But
I'm glad.
this is a frustration which I have it all the way from Germany, but I live there in Bangalore, and now I want to change it. So I have a small, I don't know, I haven't, maybe it's my ignorance, I haven't seen much of your website where I could register my ideas, which I have it in my head. Might be silly, might be good, but I want to go for a platform where we come with an ideas to solve it, because I can't physically come right now and sit with you and discuss like, hey, we have this and this and this solution. But this should be a portfolio where I can, a portal where I can actually jump in, and open people can come and write a problem and look for a solution in this, which could be a category wise, but this is like a small suggestion from my end, or if there is any, please guide us through it.
Just keep and stay in touch with us all at BNP.
In fact, I would suggest,
here.
Lata, thank you so much for sharing that experience. It's yours is not a unique experience, right? This is the experience that lakhs and lakhs of people have gone through, and that's what is bringing us together. So first, I would request that you go to nammabnp.org. You would be able to see all the body of work that we have done. You can register there. You can give your inputs, ideas on our manifesto page. You can see the kind of work that we have done with regard to transparency, accountability. There is a civic issues tracker where technically you can put in an issue and one of our team members will then take it up and try to see how best to resolve that. So best way is to engage. Then depending on how you want to move forward, one of our team members can be in touch with you. So look forward to more and more people joining the bandwagon and working together. Thank you so much, Lata. We welcome you.
Captain Mishra, nice to hear from you. I'm glad that your ward is doing well and you are engaging. Finally, it's all about, not staying away from the politics of doing things. And to Bhuma, I must only say that you must talk offline. You don't need all these complex things of exporting to China, to the deep sea. if you decentralize, if you had every apartment, 1,000 apartments don't even mean probably 300 kilos of waste, right? So if we did things like that, half a ton of waste could be absolutely dealt with locally itself without your having to take it. Yes, plastic and other things form no more than about 20%. So there are solutions. It's not for want of solutions. It's for want of engagement. If Srikanth wants to add anything to what Bhuma Sundaraman has raised, you could. Tathagat, I mean, your
By the way,
point
what
is
has she
taken.
asked?
She's saying, how do you deal with trash management? US is exporting it to China. We are not wanting to centralize these things. It has to be decentralized. That's also, I think, part of the agenda at BNP. You want to say anything about that? About waste and 4,500 tons of waste a day, Srikanth, and how we should be dealing with it?
So I think waste is a very intense subject. We have our own views on that. There is a manifesto that we have put up on solid waste management. I request people to go through it. People like Soumya has been part of solid waste management roundtable, as have been quite a few others who've been working on garbage issues.
Yeah.
We believe that garbage again is a matter that should be more and more decentralized rather than trying to make more and more landfills and export. Today there are lots of systems that have come in place. We probably need to have a separate session for garbage management by itself. Suffice it to say that I request people to go to our website. There is a specific manifesto that we have put out on solid waste management as well. Or if somebody requests, Soumya can share that with them as well. That will give them a perspective on how something like waste can be managed in a city like Bengaluru.
Sure. Anyone else who wants to share any insights, anything, before I invite Kirtibhai to take the mic?
Looks like there are
Hariji?
two or three more questions.
Yes, Ujjwala. Yes, Ujjwala.
Yes, there are two questions in the Q&A box,
Yeah,
one
he
from
can
Bhuma
respond. He
Raman
can respond to that.
and one from Tathagat
No,
Chatterjee.
Bhuma Raman's question has been addressed. That's what he was
Yes.
trying to do now. We'll leave that there. And anything else is left on the chat box?
There's a question by Tathagat Chatterjee.
That's not, it's more an observation. Again, that can be taken up. I would request Tathagata, do you want to respond to that, Srikanth? You can look at Q&A and if you do want to. But I think that should be taken up. I would urge you all, not request you, urge you all to copy that missed call number that Lalita has posted. Call her, speak to her. Many of these issues are very simple to be addressed. We don't have to be claiming Srikanth's time on those. Here,
Yeah, so the question from Tathagata Chatterjee is, the urban apathy. I think the urban apathy is primarily because we all, middle class, upper middle class people, we have a reasonably comfortable life. We are cocooned in our communities. We have our personal lives, professional lives, social lives, which we are happy to stay engaged in. So the apathy actually stems from the fact that we are able to organize ourselves in a way where we are not directly impacted by the misgovernance that is happening, except in some cases where we are able to use money. When I say money, not in a negative context. For example, if somebody charges us with a higher water tariff, we will say, let's pay for it and keep moving on. If somebody puts some kind of a penalty on us for some reason or charges an extra tax, we just say, let's pay it and move on. Now, whether that money is being utilized properly or not, we tend to ignore all of those. And I've been part of that same system, right? Which I can't claim that I was any different. But gradually, by improving awareness, I think change is beginning to happen. It will take a lot more time, but that's the initiative that we are embarking on. There is one more question that I saw in the chat window regarding coordination between MPs, MLAs, and corporators, saying without the coordination and mutual working, how will BNP be able to bring about change is a question that I've seen. So let me see where that question is. Yeah, it says, while there are different sets of political setups, MP, MLA, and corporator, my knowledge is that they work mutually. How would the system allow BNP to work only at corporation level? This question has come from Ananta Prasad. Ananta, all that I can say is that, yes, there is always coordination that is useful, but without coordination also a lot of things can happen. I just gave the example, right? There are actually 3 tiers of governance, right? The central, state, and the municipal level. There is nothing like one level reports into another level. The corporator doesn't report into the MLA doesn't report into the MP, or there is no such structure. Each one can operate independently. Coordination is preferable. Coordination is welcome. We would want to engage with MLAs and MPs and work together with them. But if they refuse to cooperate, if they refuse to engage, we can still go ahead and do work, because every ward, not just in Bengaluru, across the country, every single ward in this country will receive money every year. It's part of our federal structure. It's part of the concept which is enshrined in our constitution. Without the cooperation of the MLA and MP, that money can still be spent by the corporator along with the ward committee and area sabhas, and we can bring about change in the civic communities. Forget about BNP getting into power. I just gave the example of the skywalk construction. There's a small park in a play area that we created. There are quite a few initiatives that we have accomplished without even getting into governance, without the involvement of the MLAs and MPs. So it's a misconception that we all have, that without the blessings of the MP and MLA, the corporators cannot work. Nothing can be farther than the truth. The one reason why the corporators report into the MLA is not because the constitution says so, not because the rules or the act of the states and the cities say so. It is because very often the MLA and the corporator are from the same party. The ticket for the corporator is given by the MLA, and hence the corporator doesn't do anything without listening to the MLA. That was the case that we had in our own area, where the skywalk was not getting done by the corporator, not because she did not have the power to get it done, because she didn't want to do anything without first listening to the MLA, only because they are from the same party. But the moment the corporator went out and the nodal officer took her place and was playing the same role, within 2 months, without a bribe being paid to the MLA, we actually got the work done. So these are the anecdotes and these are the incidents that give us a lot of hope and optimism that there is a lot of change that we can bring about. And even without the cooperation of the MLAs and MPs, not that we don't want to cooperate, but even if they don't cooperate or they don't want to work together, we are reasonably confident that there are quite a few things that we can deliver at the grassroots. I hope that answers the question. I'm happy to take a couple of more questions before we wrap up, Hari.
Yeah. Yeah, there he is. Gadhavi Hiten. Go on, please. Hitendra. You can unmute and speak.
Hello.
Yes, please. We can hear you.
आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं सर?
हाँ जी, सुन पा रहे हैं बिल्कुल.
अच्छा, थैंक यू सर. सर पहले तो मैं आपको बहुत बहुत सबको बधाई और थैंक यू कहना चाहता हूँ कि आपने मुझे एक मौका दिया है. और सर मैं आज तक कभी कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी में जुड़ा तो नहीं हूँ, बट एक आम आदमी पार्टी से.
जी हितेंद्र, आपका परिचय आप पहले बताओ, आप कहाँ से बात करें उसका भी बता दीजिए, उसके बाद आप अपना राय भी बताओ.
ओके, मैं अहमदाबाद से हूँ सर.
जी.
और मैं अभी तक तो कोई पार्टी में जुड़ा नहीं था. आम आदमी पार्टी एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी था जिससे हम लोग जुड़े थे, बट वो भी एक मेन स्ट्रीम पार्टी थी, उसको समझ गए इसलिए छोड़ दिया.
जी.
अब आपका ये मैसेज मुझे उसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी में यहाँ के जो गुजरात के कन्वीनर थे उन्होंने भेजा था.
अच्छा.
मिस्टर सुखदेव पटेल. तो उन्होंने ये मैसेज दिया था कि एक पार्टी है पॉलिटिकल पार्टी, और ये एक अलग रूट से चेंज करके आ रही है. तो मुझे आपके बारे में कुछ मालूम नहीं था, पर ये आपको सुनने के बाद मुझे लग रहा है कि काफी कुछ लोकल में चेंजेस हो सकता है और कर सकते हैं. अभी अहमदाबाद में लोकल मूवमेंट पे पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्टेशन जो पहले एकदम इंडिया में सबसे बेस्ट था, आज वो एकदम वर्स्ट हो चुका है और कॉर्पोरेट के हाथ में चला गया है.
जी, हमने देखा,
कैसे चेंज कर
आपका
सकते हैं?
चैट बॉक्स का नोट भी देखा हमने.
या अब इसे कैसे चेंज कर सकते हैं और आपसे कैसे कनेक्ट हो सकते हैं? और आपका भी इंटेंस मुझे समझना था, क्योंकि आपका पार्टी एक्सपेंड में मानता है, एक्सपांड होना चाहता है, या हमसे कैसे कनेक्ट हो गया?
Srikanth.
Yeah, so Hitendra ji, I will respond in English because there are quite a few people who might not understand Hindi. मुझे हिंदी आती है, हाँ मुझे हिंदी आती है, मगर बाकी लोगों को समझ में नहीं आएगा.
I understand.
So two things here. You know, there are quite a few of us who have been supporters of Aam Aadmi Party ourselves. But at one level, what I realized also is that
No, but his question is, Srikanth, the only thing you need to respond to is, he's saying, are you likely to be in other cities? Or
which is what
there...
I'm coming to, which
Yeah.
is exactly what I'm coming to. I think one of the reasons I felt things have gone in a different direction in Aam Aadmi Party to some extent is because they're trying to do too many things at the same
That's
time.
okay. Yeah.
Right. So for me, I want to keep our focus only on Bengaluru for now. I feel it's very, very important to first focus on one city, focus on how to set this right. This itself will take a long time for us to do. I don't have any problem in somebody taking this concept and replicating this anywhere else. We'd be, in fact, more than happy to share our ideas and welcome that. We'll be very happy if more and more people take this up. There's always scope for learnings. But at BNP, that's why I've named it also as Bengaluru Navanirmana Party. It's not Bharat Navanirmana Party. First, I want to do this experiment in Bengaluru. This itself, in my view, will take quite some time. We know the extent of the problem that we have. So first, let's solve this.
Sure.
We want to prove that there is change that is possible at the grassroots level at a small scale. For me, in fact, if I look at it right, one of the things that gave me confidence was I was able to bring about change in my own residential community to start with. If I had not done that, probably I would not have ventured out into doing this. Then when we started doing some things at the ward level, that gave us some comfort and the confidence that we can do some things at a ward level. Now, I've embarked on this journey, and there's a lot of people across the city who have joined us now. We have embarked at a city-wide level, which is a problem which is even tougher to solve. So one by one, we want to do this. If this model takes off well, and in the future, if others want to take this and replicate it, we'll be more than happy to do it. But first, for that, we need to prove that this model works, can be successfully delivered at a local level, and the secret ingredients or the key ingredients as to what does it take to get it done. First, we want to demonstrate that, and then after that, we can start doing it in other cities, not necessarily by ourselves, but by other conscientious citizens in other cities also taking such things. I hope that answers the question.
It's 92 minutes, and
What was the
today,
Sir,
yeah.
hello.
Yes, please. Yes, Hitinder. हाँ जी,
सर,
बोलो.
लोकल ट्रांसपोर्टेशन को चेंज करने के लिए क्या थॉट दे सकते हैं?
We need to cover that in a separate session.
We'll
Local
do that.
transportation is a big issue, or public transport in Bengaluru is also a big issue. We just have metro coming up. Last mile connectivity is pretty pathetic. We still don't have minibuses or minivans for last mile connectivity. There is no coordination between all of this. So it's a you know, I had, in fact, I used to host sessions every Sunday. We talked about this problem at a holistic level, right? Starting from metro to public transport to usage of cycles to pedestrian footpaths and walkways, to then how do we disincentivize usage of cars, parking policy. So it will require a completely different session that we have to do. I don't think we'll have time today to get into.
वो करेंगे हितेंद्र भाई. वो क्या है ना, अभी आज का वैसे और भी है वैसे. There are 5 more like this. So Kirti bhai, back to you. Yes, see, today, before you offer your concluding notes, Kirti bhai, he talked largely today of civic issues and, of course, his own, the origin of such thinking that happened in his own mind, as well as the rallying support and so on. But these concerns on, like I said earlier, health, education, welfare, and as Hitin bhai is saying, transportation, all these are concerns that I'm certain that he will take up as he progresses through the other 5 sessions that he has got before him. So keeping that in mind, what wrap up this session, and what would be your expectations of what is to ensue in the next 5 sessions? Over to you, Kirti.
Thank you, Srikanth bhai, thank you, Hari ji. But let me switch over to Gujarati. Hiten bhai, તમે મને સાંભળો છો?
Yes, Hitin bhai.
હિતેન્દ્ર ભાઈ, હું અમદાવાદમાંથી બોલું છું. હું અમદાવાદમાં રહું છું. અમદાવાદમાંથી રહીને આ ઇનહાફ નામની સંસ્થા ચલાવું છું, જે આ કામ કરી રહ્યું છે. અને હું એટલા માટે તમને કહું છું કે તમે મને મળો તો અમે અમદાવાદ BRTS અને પૂના BRTS પર બહુ જ 3 વર્ષ 4 વર્ષ અભ્યાસ કર્યો છે.
Right.
પબ્લિક પોલિસી અને પબ્લિક ટ્રાન્સપોર્ટ વિશે બહુ જ કામ થઈ રહ્યું છે. તો મને મળશો તો આપણે જરૂર એના વિશે વાત કરીશું. So that's in Gujarati, and I think I hope Hiten Bhai has listened here my. But just few things. First, of course, deep and very sincere thanks to Srikanth Bhai for time and for agreeing to do this series of webinars, and I'm very, very grateful to you. And of course, Hari Saab, for you having found time and manage it so interestingly and well. What I wanted to do, and I think I should have done this earlier, Srikanth Bhai, I essentially have 5 or 6 questions they want to ask you, very simple. My first question is, you are a political party. And you are a political party, your jurisdiction and your constituency is the local government, the municipal corporation. My first question is, have you fought any election?
Not yet. We are still waiting for the municipal
You
election,
have
which
not,
is
you've not
overdue by
No.
2.5 years now.
you've not fought an election, right?
Not yet.
And you know what fighting an election does. We've seen it from our party. AAP came from lots of good ideas, lots of good concerns, lots of good people getting together, and you know where it is. So my first question is this, because I was very surprised to hear your experiences. I didn't hear any of the societal analysis of cities functioning, and cities' ambition. And solving problem is one part. Solving problem in the context of class conflict, in the context of political kind of expediency, in the context of regime of corruption, in the context of relationship between the state and the city, the political, it's a hugely complex thing. And therefore, do I understand correctly that you are essentially at a stage where you're not really kind of seen the waters in terms of what they are? So this is the first. If you don't want to answer, you can answer. Subsequent, this is my first question.
No, but sorry, what, can you,
Sir,
what is the
sir.
question? What is the question?
My question is that if you're not fought any election, you've not really gone through the political processes.
We have not.
Yeah. So okay. So that's
No, we have fought to contest the election. I wish the elections. In fact, somebody asked a question on the chat window. Why didn't you contest the
that's my
MLA
second
election?
question. What are you doing to see that the elections happen? Elections at the city level are being postponed and not done for a very long time, and that is the biggest right that is being taken away from people to vote for the city, to give city a governance.
So here again, we have gone into a judicial process. There is a case that's going on in the Supreme Court still. Sometimes these are the things that put me down quite a bit. About 5 months back or 6 months back, when the hearing came up in the Supreme Court, I don't want to stand in contempt of the court or anything of that sort, but one comment that came from a judge which disappointed me incredibly is 2 years of having fought this battle in the court. One judge made a comment saying, what is the hurry in holding the election? Let the reservation and other things happen in due course, and the election can be held later. So when we have the judiciary, or at least some parts of the judiciary, which is not supporting this process, it is an incredibly uphill journey. And this is a journey that I've gone through in the past. I gave the example of the 9 trips that I had made to Delhi to the National Green Tribunal, didn't fight. So we have to fight these battles. We'll keep fighting these battles.
Srikanth, there is nothing new about, I think, going to the court and hearing not happening. There is nothing special about it.
It's nothing
that
new.
happens to everyone. It's a systemic thing.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, if you really were to say, if you really were to give an example, that a judge or someone from the law side, I think told you that what is there, I think in terms of we hear this argument all the time. The democracy is not the most effective way of running a system. It's
Yeah.
not the effective way
So,
of
Kirti,
fighting
just to close out
democracy.
on that, since the judiciary again is not responding in the way we want, over the next few years, and these are all things that are not going to happen overnight, over the next few years, we will build more and more public awareness about the importance of municipal government, importance of the elections. I've realized one lesson in my life. There is no court on earth which is bigger than the people's court.
No,
When
that's not the
people
argument.
come together and people start demanding in large numbers,
That is the
change will
biggest
happen.
argument. No one can deny that. I think, but I think
Yeah.
just let me kind of finish. I think in a very quickly,
Sure.
because that's number one. So you were saying that you are a political party which has not fought any election yet. Second thing, you are supposed to be a municipal committed, municipal oriented, municipality working political output. And you and your city has not really kind of announced elections for a very, very long time. You're saying you're going through political battle, but there have been no success. So this is the second important point, which is very important. Third, my question is this: what is the socio-economic profile of your association of the flats, apartments? You're saying that you have 1,200 members of the apartment who are members of the association. What is the socio-political level? And there's a reason I'm asking this question. The reason I'm asking this question, that in the context of politics of city, in the context of politics of democracy, it's very important in terms of where you stand in terms of class. And therefore, my next question is any of the slum in Bangalore, which has 786 slums, member of your association? They are also people, they also have housing, they also have water problem, they also have eviction problem, they also have all kind of problems. Are they your constituency also? That's my fourth question.
Let me quickly answer that. The apartment thing was related to Bangalore Apartments Federation. So the Bangalore Apartments Federation exists purely for apartment complexes.
Okay.
Bengaluru Navanirmana Party exists for every citizen of Bengaluru. Just to give you a perspective,
no, but you're saying that the political base essentially comes from your apartment. That is a very, very clear.
Each of us will have our own.
Politicians come to you because you have apartment, federation apartment, you have 1,200 members, you essentially have upper end members, and that is what gives you political clout. And that is why people come and ask questions.
It does.
And I understand that.
Absolutely, it does. But that doesn't mean that we are focused only on apartment complexes.
I'm just, that's why I'm asking this question.
Absolutely, which is what I'm trying to answer, saying we are absolutely engaging with the lower middle class as well as the slums. As of yesterday, in fact, one of our leaders was attending this meeting, a lady called Indra. She's going to be one of our contestants. She just launched a livelihood program for one of the slums where we have done tailoring classes and giving them tailoring machines to create livelihoods. There is a slum which is 200 meters away from where I live. About 500 hutments, people were there. Last 3 years, I have consistently engaged with them on multiple programs, right? Today, the interesting part, in fact, as of today, the representative that we have from that slum, he reaches out to me, whether it is about their children's education, whether it is about livelihoods for some of the ladies, whether it is about tackling the winter, whenever they lose their livelihoods, how do they sort of get through that? All of these things, they come back and engage with us. And we are happy to engage with them. We are not here to just distribute, we are not here to distribute freebies to them. We actively engage with them in running livelihood programs, education programs, health programs. We have done health camps there. So systematically we are engaging. And these are all things that can be delivered only through the municipal system ultimately. So we are creating some concepts which we are already demonstrating and deploying. And we want to deploy it at larger scale. Hopefully once we have some corporators into the system. But absolutely, slums are very, very important stakeholders in our whole ecosystem.
Let me ask you, because I'm very glad you said this. Let me ask you another question. You are a political party. You have a political manifesto. I'll tell you, I'm asking this question. It's not manifesto, concern fighting an election, because there's no election. I'm essentially asking this question in the context of attitude of the political party to issues, to concerns. Like, say, for instance, if you had a political manifesto of your party, what position would it take on evictions, on slum formations, on land management of city, on resource allocation, on budgeting? These are very, very critical issues. You cannot deal with without a political philosophy, a social philosophy. And I'm asking this question as a friend. I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand this political outfit. And because if you're saying this is the only one in the country, this is the only one in the world, then these questions are very legitimate.
Sure. Can I answer those quickly?
Yeah, please.
So, as a party which is focused only on municipal governance, we have to understand that there are three levels, right? The state level, central level, and the municipal level. Center and state predominantly exist for policies, formation of policies, and ensuring that those are implemented. If you look at the municipal level, you have to hear me out on this, Kirti bhai. Municipal level is predominantly about execution and provision of amenities. For example, eviction related issues, these fall squarely under the state government, right? Now, there is no way I can influence the legislature because I'm not having any representation there. But what I can do is that when we have a slum, for example, right, or when we talk of land use rights, we cannot get involved in policy because that's not what I'm focusing on. But where it already exists, in terms of provisioning of services, in terms of provisioning of infrastructure, in terms of provisioning of livelihoods, in terms of engaging with them at the grassroots level, ensuring that they have a better standard of living, those are all the things that we can work on. I wish I can work on many, many issues that go at the not just at the municipal level, but at the state level and the national level. But that would be biting too much, and we won't be able to digest more than what we can swallow.
The reason I was essentially kind of reacting to what you're saying is because I have learned, and I've been saying for the last 30 years, and I've been running a magazine for Ahmedabad city, which said a sustainable city, an equal city, a just city, a concerned city, and a city which respects people and all that. I've written about this extensively. One has written about all this because one is talking about city as an entity.
Right.
City as a policy maker. City is the one which I think evolves and devolves resources. City is the one which city is known as centers of economic growth. Cities are supposed to kind of look after. They are the ones who look after, I think, 70% of the growth, while even though 30% of the people live there. How could we say that city has no policy, that it's a state is the one level, center is the other level, and the city is the third level? They are all intermingled. They are one. If you're talking about decentralization, we're talking about moving from center to state and state to city. They're all entity. 74th Amendment made cities constitutional entities.
Got that, Kirti bhai.
So
this
what
is a
I'm trying
far
to say
longer
is-
discussion, Kirti bhai,
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely, Kirti bhai.
hoping
Yeah.
that this will happen over the next 5 sessions. Excellent points, very sharp, searching, whatever questions are you asked, Kirti bhai, on the political manifesto and what it will take as position. And I think it's very important for not just this party, for any party in terms of urban governance, and what their charp will be. What is their persona when it comes to, like you said, the various segments of people. We can't forget, for example, the caste equation and all of these things.
Absolutely.
How can we go away from it? We have to be very naive. And you know what the central government has done to stop Bihar from putting out that caste census, which they've already completed. And you know what happened in other states where they tried doing the caste census. So the caste census is inevitable. It has to happen. Everybody plays the caste card, and we don't want to talk about it at these intelligence middle class levels. The other point I want to make to both of you is, yesterday I was talking to a KPCC member, a very senior member. He's sitting in Delhi, thanks to all this imbroglio. And I asked him this question about when you will have any stand taken on corporator elections, municipal elections. And he says, look, this has been taken up in our meetings before the elections also. We did not want to make any political announcements on this, but it will certainly be taken up not for just this city, but for also, he mentioned Hubli Dharwad also. And this will be done within the next 3 to 6 months, he said. Now, this is a very senior member. He will be back in town, and I am going to raise this issue. I've also raised a few more issues on, on water and other civic issues. So I think these guys now will, at least as the new broom, be a little more effective for some time. I don't know how much as corruption will happen. You talked about KJ George. Who doesn't know KJ George and all the atrocities, the brutality of public expenditure that he has foisted upon the city? It's a public meeting. I know I'm taking a meeting, but anyway, somebody will expunge this. I would think, Kirtibhai, if we have spent what now, 90 plus.
But quickly, Hari, I just want to quickly respond.
No, I just before you, I think, Srikanth, just one little point I want to make is this. You won't believe me, when I was heading HIC, which is Habitat International Coalition, which is the world's organization working on cities and housing rights. You know what was the campaign? Whose city?
Is this? Yeah. Who owns the city?
Whose city are we talking about?
Who owns the city? Yeah, it's the other way of putting it.
Whose city? Whose jobs? Whose employment? Whose water? Whose swimming pool? Whose rivers? Whose traffic? And whose it was the most important part on which I worked for 10 years. And I know it's a very, very legitimate question if you are a political party. If you're doing social work, it is not very important.
Kirtibhai, you'll need to allow me to answer and complete my answer.
Sure.
Ultimately, everything in this world, it's all interlinked. Terrorism has an impact in the way we live in our cities. The global environment crisis that we have, it has an impact on our city. Caste-related issues, they have an impact on our city. Pretty much everything, the defense issues that we have with other countries, it has an impact on our cities. Now, one way to look at it, no, you got to allow me to complete on this. There was a question, long question that came, and I will need my time to answer that so that everybody understands this very clearly. As a person who started a party, I had two choices in front of me. I could have gone the way of all the other parties and saying that I will fight for all issues and sundry. I can fight for the hijab, I can fight for the Citizenship Amendment Act, I can fight for the Farm Act, which also has an impact here. I can fight on the global environment crisis, I can fight on the defense issues, I can fight on everything, all parts and everything. I had another choice with me. There are still a lot of things that are broken at the grassroots level. Those can be fixed with focus. A broken footpath still claims lives. Lack of a skywalk still claims lives. A pothole in Bengaluru keeps claiming lives every alternate week. The stinking drains and the drains that are filled with sewage water there, which is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Dengue actually kills more people than Corona has ever done. Are these issues that are important for us or not? If we want a beautiful city, there are things that need to be set right at the grassroots level also. Today, there are enough and more people giving their voice out for environmental issues, terrorism, religion, caste, etc. How many people are giving their voice out on the civic issues? So I can take a stance saying that, everything is interlinked and hence I will fight for every issue and not make an impact on any issue whatsoever. Instead, I've chosen a path. It's a clear path that we have chosen. We have not just a political manifesto. If you go to our site, we have a manifesto for solid waste management. We have a manifesto for lakes. We have a manifesto for trees. We have a manifesto for how we want to intend dealing with slums. We have a manifesto for how we are dealing with going to deal with apartment complexes. We have a manifesto for mobility. We have a manifesto for how we're going to do water management. These are all very, very important things. And this itself takes up a lot of our team's time. I know the amount of time that our team members spend on these things, thinking about it, acting on it, fighting on it, and bringing about change. Now, if we start getting into all aspects of policy making, we won't be able to make any impact on this level as well. And we anyway won't be able to make an impact at that level as well. Instead, I would first want to fight on issues and solve issues at the local level. And in fact, I've stated this to all my team members also. While BNP will not contest the MLA elections, it would be a matter of great pride and privilege for me over a period of time when some of our people who get elected as corporators I want them to get on to become MLAs, either as independents or part of other parties, and ultimately to go on to become MPs and start engaging in policy making as well. The interlinkages will start happening as people start growing. In fact, one of the lessons that I learned when I started this political party, if you look at all the big political leaders in this country during our independence time, whether it is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Vallabhai Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, many such political leaders, they all started their political careers at the municipal level. They didn't think about the larger level issues to start with and then say, I'll solve everything. They first cut their teeth into municipal governance, understood what are local problems, how those need to be sorted out. Then they gradually started moving on. I would rather that BNP and our leaders start first at the municipal governance level, understand what are the grassroots issues, why are we facing those grassroots issues, what does it take to solve them. Then once we develop an understanding of that, once we solve those issues, then you get on to the next level to say what are the policy level things that are implemented which have a bearing on the grassroots level. And hence, how do we formulate policy that then reaches grassroots level? I can try to address all the problems starting from the grassroots level to the country level, all in one shot, saying that they are interlinked. Instead, the approach that I'm taking is first start at the grassroots, build up one level, then get to the next level, not as a party, but as individuals, many of them. They go to the next level, think about policy, how it impacts at the grassroots level, then go one level higher. How does caste play a role? How does policy at a national level play a role? Gradually, let's keep building up. Misgovernance and all the bad things that have happened in this country over decades and decades, I would be happy if it can be solved in 1 or 2 years, but the reality is they are not going to be solved in 1 or 2 years. We need to have patience, and we need to have the gumption to say that we can't take everything at one shot and solve them all together. We need to focus first on smaller level things. As I said, if I had not solved my community level issues, there is no way I would have developed an understanding of how to solve ward level issues. If we don't understand how to solve ward level issues, we can't understand how to solve city level issues. If we don't know how to solve city level issues, we can't understand how to solve state level issues. And if we don't understand how to solve state level issues, we won't know how to solve the issues that the country is facing. But that's how we have to build from the grassroots. Start at the community level, then get on to the ward level, then get on to the city level, state level, and so on. And I'm not saying that everything has to happen completely sequentially. But if we don't develop an understanding of these issues at the grassroots level, and one of the big problems that I have with many fora where they talk about policy, saying, oh, this act, there is a problem with this issue, there is there at the national level, etc. What they fail to understand is, in fact, I tell this, Swachh Bharat mission that was implemented or that was conceptualized by the BJP government and promoted by the Prime Minister, it failed not because the concept was bad. It failed because there was no implementation at the grassroots level. In my neighboring slum that I'm talking of, which has 500 hutments, they still defecate in the open. There are no toilets there. Who provides for the toilets? It's the municipal government. When there are no toilets that are there in that slum, how can we even talk about a Swachh Bharat campaign? It can be effective. If the Prime Minister announces something, if there is no cooperation that's coming from forget the state level, at the municipal level, at the corporate level, at the ward sabha level, ward committee level, area sabha level, all the way to the contacts that we are building at each community level, nothing will work. So if we have to implement good policies, we need to know how the grassroots work. And I want to start from there. I want not just me, all our team members to build a strong and solid understanding of that and gradually move up. And I think there we might be conceptually misaligned, which is fine. And I'm not even saying that this is the only right approach that we want, that somebody should be taking. All that I'm saying is that at BNP, I'm taking this approach. We are taking this approach. If it doesn't work, it will not be for lack of efforts, but at least we would have tried out. And it's a different approach. Nobody else, I would say, in this world has tried this approach so far. We are the first ones who are taking this approach, building it from grassroots. Let's see how it goes. At least it's an experiment. We will know in the next 10, 15, 20 years how this experiment takes shape and where it leads us.
Srikanth Sahab, I think let me thank you. I think, but before there, just two things that I would like to say. And this will also help you at the home. My wife makes policy in my house. My school teachers, make policies in the school. In my organization, my staff and the governing council makes policy. So policy essentially is all level thing, is not something which is confined to city and the state and the center. It's all level thing. There's one thing that I wanted to share, and I think we should need to talk about this more. Number two is this, that one thing is problem solving, and second thing is to bring about change, and they are not the same thing. Problem solving is possible within vacuum. You essentially are talking about advocacy. I know politicians say, why are you wasting so much time? We'll solve this problem at the dining table. So what I'm trying to say is that those changes are possible. They're not changes. They're problem solving. Building a bridge, doing this, I think, putting in, I think, a system. Change is a very different thing. And what our cities are lacking and need very desperately are the systemic change. And I personally feel at some point of time, while we do this other second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth webinar, we should be talking about this as well. It is, how do we go forward? Because see, problem solving is happening every day. What is not happening is change not taking place. And that is why we are where we are. And I think we need to kind of taking your position, which is very good, because you've taken a position, you're in the field, you're working with people. And I think, people who are essentially looking at cities slightly abstractly should kind of match. And that is what this exchange is about. It's not criticism, it's exchange. I'm essentially trying to bring in a perspective of a person who has looked at cities for 35, 50 years and ask these questions. And I think, not only on an abstract, but also through projects, through activities, through doing things. So what I'm trying to say, this is a very healthy dialogue, and I'm very glad that this is happening, and we would take this further. So
Sure.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for everyone who is here at this point of time. Thank you, Hari Saab. Thank you, Srikanth ji. Thank you, I think, Soumya ji. And Gadvi Saab, mane phone karjo, apne baat karishu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirti bhai. Thank you, Hari, and thank you all for joining. We look
Thank
forward to more
you.
such engaging sessions with the rest of the team. Thank you, Hari.
Srikanth, into the future, you must see that we stop at about 90 minutes. You see that one half of the people have left, and this will happen to all of us. Only the very committed will stay. There are quite a few staying.
But Hari Saab, these meetings are for the committee. These are not the one who desert. Let them go. Doesn't matter.
That's it. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.